people will have to do less work. So you can, pretty soon you'll have 3-day weeks. And then may become 2 days.
Waiting for the day to come.
From any technology, right? Whether it's a mobile phone to anything, internet, from any technology perspective, the more you try to regulate, the more you try to
opposite side. Graduate classes or MBA classes, the number of years of work they come in with has gone up. So there's a sea change in that.
It's just going to stop them from learning. And you really need to learn to be able to have your brain grow, behave better.
If your answer is in 2% of the median, I am okay. Can't go to 2.5.
Or 1.4 billion people in the country, a lot of them are doing the rule-based daily, they're just absolutely operational jobs. That will completely get replaced with AI.
The question of what will people do then? Will Thanos come in and reduce the population into half, and then will that make it more easier for it?
So we lucked out. We got a topic we had actually started discussing a while back. So this is about sentience. This is about AI. This is about what's going to happen to the next generation products. And probably a little bit about what's going to be our role in the world going forward. So what do we see? I mean, where is AI headed? Where do we see products actually coming to life? How are they coming to life?
It's very interesting this topic came. I was mentioning to Deep that I was in the Gartner event. My out of office, I normally try to configure it to make it a little funny, and I wrote multiple tech that I'll hear about at that event, and the last one I put was AI. And I said, if my out of office response changes and AI comes at top, that means AI has developed either an ego or emotions, right? Fortunately, it didn't happen. It still remained right there at the end, but clearly there are lots of instances people hear about where something happens which is different from what you expected it to be. And it's like we say God and AI moves in mysterious ways, basically, right? So there's a lot of noise around it, obviously, and there's a lot of hype around it. It's already started to come down. People got really excited in the last 12 months. Yesterday was AI's birthday, if I remember correctly, first year. Gen AI, OpenAI, correct. So there's a lot of excitement around it, but things will definitely change. It's clearly visible, and he's a tech, you are a tech person. I'm sorry, I don't know about the three of you, but things will definitely change. To what extent, no one knows yet. I think we are still at the tip of the iceberg. But it's visible in terms of how we engage with the broader community. So if I look at B2C companies, and I work for a company called Exotel, we've been doing a lot of work around this. But how will organizations really engage with the consumers has started to change really, really dramatically. Will people really be needed? Will digital take care of it, and will it learn on its own and take care of it more and more? I clearly see that happening. Wow. It's a question of what will people do then. Will Thanos come in and reduce the population into half, and then will that make it more easier for everyone? Is the question that still remains.
Honestly, we might just get bored and reduce the population. So I'll first go with the non-tech guys over here. So Paramita,
they may be tech, by the way. You know.
Semi-tech. Let's go with. Okay. So Paramita, how is it already impacted, and what do you see the next steps, early days?
So, if I really, talk about impact and the sentiments in the people's mind, there's a lot of, there's actually a wide range, from exuberance to, thinking that, okay, now we will probably need to tame it a bit, because the potential that they see, especially, after all they've seen in the healthcare and the transportation that AI has done, there is a huge expectation, and people tend to be kind of one-sided, that we look at the benefits that it brings. But you also need to be cautious about, what could be the pitfalls of it. So there is, AI for sure is market disruptive. It brings in a lot of benefit, but it acts on a lot of data sets. So creating a policy or a framework around how to contain the loss of this data, hacking, ethical hacking, unethical hacking, different grades of hacking that happens, So that is something I think people, are now starting to think, looking at the potential and understanding that this is just going to blow out of proportion. So I think that's something we need to be really, really cautious of.
Deep, you have been an investor, and I'm sure that you see about 5 new ideas around AI every day, and generative AI might be a very significant proportion of that. So, what are the next steps here? What do we see coming up in the next 3 months? What do we see coming up in the next 6 months?
So, there are 2 aspects of this entire spectrum. Number 1, how it is being adopted, what are the use cases? And number 2, where is the investments going? Right, these are the 2 ends of the spectrum, because the reason I say the investment going, because that is what is going to come up the next. So when I look at the entire AI spectrum, the use cases, in fact, Arvind and I were talking, is going to disrupt a lot of services industry actually to start with, whether it is marketing, content creation, visuals, everything, right? The entire concept of marketing, and it is across, right? Number 2, actually software development. The second use case is software development. Third is around the entire, if you look at economy like India, our entire tech industry, which has grown up on the labor arbitrage. And Arvind and I were talking, it has to move to a tech arbitrage. So the entire model of global delivery, global thing has to significantly change. So so basically, whatever, we put resources to, people to solve problems. In all emerging economies, we have no option but to put tech to solve problems. So that's one side of the use case. The other side so when I look at the investment, and specifically on Gen AI, there are actually 3 layers of Gen AI. One is the entire infrastructure layer. I don't know let me put it this way. Actually, at this point of time, there is only one manufacturer of the fab.
Yep.
Right, which is NVIDIA.
Yep.
Right, a huge amount of investment is going on in 2 areas. Number 1, how can you build a next NVIDIA kind of a thing? Number 2, how can you reduce the foundation models not to depend upon GPUs? So there are different kind of accelerators coming out, specialized chips coming out. So that's number 1, where a lot of investment is happening. And it's not just hardware. If you look at what NVIDIA has done, they've done from hardware to software. So it's a very, they have a 10-year lead kind of a thing, right? So it's not an easy moat to surmount. So that's number 1. Number 2, the foundation model, what we talk about LLMs, right? There you will see the wars of, the big players like OpenAI, Microsoft, Google, Amazon with Anthropic, but you will also see a lot of open source, right? That's a second layer. The third layer is the application. Are we creating new generation applications for end users, right? And what the common belief is, it is like Internet of 1998, right? So it's like we are selling books, we are selling furniture. We are not doing the business model, disruption, which might happen. Maybe it may not take 10 years, it might happen in 12 months.
So Arvind, I'll put the difficult one. This is the one where you decide whether I have a job at the end of the day or not. So do you think there's any point in the current curriculum that we have for both tech and for management? Or do you see that we need to drastically change what we're teaching and how we teach?
Oh, this is going to be a huge disruptor. In fact, I would say that we need to not treat tech and all the knowledge available in the cloud or wherever as an extension of our brain. So we essentially need to really understand these tools that enable us to get that knowledge. So using these tools are very important. And I was just sharing with Deep that my daughter, she's doing a master's in design. And it's AR, VR, and she's got to program these headsets. And I was asking her, you don't know programming, how are you doing this program? She said, there's no problem. Whatever the specs I need, I tell ChatGPT, it generates the code, and I put the code and it works. So I think knowing how to use these tools is going to be more important than actually the knowledge that you have in your own head.
So prompt engineering is going to be the
Well,
basic
prompt is just
course.
one of the things. Yeah, just one of the things.
To learn how to do prompt engineering at a level
Yes.
beyond that.
Yes, yes.
Sorry,
Yeah,
if I
please.
can just add, and that's a very interesting point you made. So, at least when we look at consumers and we talk about, I've spent most of my time doing sales and marketing after XLRI. And the question that often comes up is the role of the brand, right? What does a brand do? What does a brand need to deliver? I think, simply put, at least in my experience, the more commoditization, the greater the role of the brand. So what I see in future happening is, as AI is going to make a lot of complex things very, very simple, the tools are going to be available for everyone. I think it's just how creative you can be with it, which I think will always be the differentiator. I think possibly creativity and how to espouse creativity and how to maneuver creativity will be the cutting edge.
Okay.
So that needs to be...
I would challenge even that. Because if you use ChatGPT, it actually replaces creativity as well.
So, sure. So I think my point is, when everyone is going to use ChatGPT, everyone's code will look the same, then the one that will stand out is the one who will use it better.
So in fact, I heard a very scary thing from somebody who's working this field. So, earlier we used to talk about things like things which are repeatable are the ones which are going to get taken the first.
Absolutely.
Now we know that things which are not repeatable also are getting taken away from us. Now, he says the last bastion is professions that involve lying. I don't know whether that's going to be true, but my question over here to you is, do you think there are going to be significant legal challenges in this entire field that is coming up, and what do you think might be the nature of those things?
So I think first I'd like to just reflect upon like the role of AI currently, and I would say that at the moment 80% of it has been used to create value. Like you have a product, but it's not about the product anymore. It's about the value that you can give to the consumer. It is about understanding their preferences. It's about what they're looking for, making it available to them quickly, because the consumer doesn't have patience anymore. But having said that, I think I agree with you that there need to be guardrails put into place, because the moment that value creation actually takes over the product itself, that's when it's going to create a problem. And there could be legal issues around it, about data privacy, about how much AI knows about a particular consumer. I know there are laws in place, but yes, that could definitely pose some kind of a challenge. And that is something we need to be prepared about, like that we might have to deal with. Or the consumer wants something and AI say, no, you should be getting this. You shouldn't be getting a margarita pizza. You should be getting with toppings on, because, you need nutrition. So I think there could be, once AI learns too much about it, there could be those kind of connotations that come into play. And just one more point I wanted to talk about is reflecting on the learning bit. And that really worries me for students, because now everything is available to them so quickly. Like they have to make a PowerPoint. They just don't think about it. I struggled with it for so many years, and finally I learned it. But they don't need to do that. They just tell ChatGPT, refine my resume, do this for me, do that for me. And I think it's it's just going to stop them from learning. And you really need to learn to be able to have your brain grow, behave better. And I think that is the most worrisome point for me, is going to just stop the learning process.
I agree, but
I think I would add thinking to it also.
Yeah.
Thinking and coming up with, an innovative solution.
Yeah.
That is something they are not interested in, because, as she rightly said, we all, I think our generation struggled badly with PPTs.
Yeah.
We were horrible at it. I mean, the next generation without ChatGPT was still better. But now that is available at the drop of a hat. Why think? Why spend the time?
Exactly.
And that is taking the patience level down.
Absolutely, but how do we solve for that? I mean, you have this tool which they have in the pockets, literally in the pockets, and every question we throw at them is about one prompt away. And so what do we do about it? How do we gauge that they have learned
And
or not?
I just want to say one more thing. It's you throw a question, there's an answer. Then you tell ChatGPT you're not happy with the answer, modify.
Yes.
It modifies. Then you go back again and say, can you add these words and modify? It does that for you. So it'll keep doing it till you're happy with the draft. But you really haven't used your brain, to kind of come up with the draft. You've just thrown those words, which the AI is smart enough to pick it up and
As I get older, I keep on saying that I hope companies hire me for my brain and not what I can physically do,
Yeah.
right? But the fact is, at some stage, this brain, if I start using ChatGPT too
Yeah.
much, will atrophy.
Absolutely.
And my ability to use that brain is what I need to focus on. There's an
Yeah.
Exotel wrote a book called "How Do You Get Better at Getting Better," right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
how do you know who I'm talking about, right?
yeah.
So, Chandramouli. So, the thought that comes to my mind: how do I get better at thinking is what I need to do, and maybe I
Yeah.
need to use ChatGPT to figure out how I get better at thinking. But the fact is, the brain does atrophy, and whenever I tend to use ChatGPT, my wife tells me, "Don't use it. You're going to
Yeah.
get lazy.
Exactly.
Don't use it." And it's a huge challenge because someone else is using it and appearing better than you are.
Yeah.
So let me ask you a question. Do you have a policy on ChatGPT in the institute?
So we had thought about a policy, but right now I think what we have done and most other universities have also done is it's there to stay. You have to figure out how best we can leverage it for what we are doing. I think the challenge that is coming, whether we would like to admit it or not, is how do you check for the learning that has taken place? We can always have ChatGPT being used for various elements, but at the end of the day, how do you check whether this person is actually telling you what they have done is done by them? I mean, you know the kids. That's why you can probably end up saying that
hallucination is clearly visible."
this is not you. But it's not a scalable solution. It's not certainly scalable. You have a class of 50, you won't be able to do that.
Actually, it's very interesting point you make. I think at some point in education, the question that you have to ask is, how are you going to measure success? If it's going to be a written answer at the end of the day, we will struggle.
That's out of the question now. I mean, I
Because
think we've already-
ChatGPT will be able to do, whatever it is that we are seeing it do. Maybe the answer is in measuring success by demonstrating or doing rather than writing.
Right in front. You see, the old answer which was there, many educational institutions, what they have gone back to, that the old answers of putting students in a room and getting them to write something
Yes.
all by themselves.
Yeah.
That is foolproof, but whether that's useful or not is I'm not very sure. We had rejected that about 50 years back.
Actually, interesting again. So because, see, when I was in college, internet was, in 2005-06, it was just about established. We were all copying answers from the internet, right? And the professors came up with this thing where if you're copying from the same website, it can tell you. There's a software. I'm sure at some point
already there.
it will come in.
No, it is already there.
So this, if you use AI to do this,
Yeah.
I think these tools will be there.
The tools
Right.
will be there, but right now,
At
I
the
think maybe
moment,
at
it's
the
not
cusp.
there.
The same tool.
At the
turn it
moment,
in.
you can't detect in AI.
It will be a function of time. I'm sure it will be there. At some point, this will come.
It's not
I think
used in India.
I'll-
Overseas,
Really?
yeah.
I'll
I don't
agree a
think
little
so.
with
They'll check us.
no,
They'll
I'll
sift
agree a
through
little
the-
See,
bit
but
with
somebody is going to
Arvind
solve
over
this
here.
problem, I feel, at some point.
Plagiarism tools are there, but not for
Exactly,
generative
yeah.
AI.
checkers.
Yeah.
There are?
ChatGPT checkers are there, but again,
It's possible
the
to program
accuracy
this, I
of those is slightly under doubt. So that is the other thing. Yeah, it's probably a matter of time, and they'll
See,
also catch up.
you
The
know,
day
the kids
Google
are smart
endorses
enough.
it, it will solve the problem.
Like the problem we
Brought to you
had
by
with
Google.
the problem we had some time back with deep fakes. I mean, that continued
Yes,
for a while.
yeah.
Now we have the
Yeah.
solution to it. So this is also a problem.
Let me ask a question in a different way. With why do you want to? Okay, we are ruining the fact that is it going to, basically it's going to atrophy our brain, right? Is it going to get our creativity? Is it going to challenge our creativity? So that's one way of looking at it.
I'm almost scared you're going to say let it. What is the problem?
Exactly.
But that's the reality. Don't go there.
See, again, I'm not a pro or against. Like, let's look at it from any technology, right? Whether it's a mobile phone to anything, internet. From any technology perspective, the more you try to regulate, the more you try to
Opposite head up.
exactly. So that's number one. Number two is what are we concerned about? Are we concerned about data privacy? Are we concerned about human development? What are we concerned about? What's the real issue?
Yeah.
Right. So if it is human development, right? So if you look at mobile phone, if you look at internet, did it actually pause or progress? Right. That's number one.
I
If you
don't
look
remember mobile numbers any longer.
at exactly.
Yeah.
I don't remember people any longer. Right, that's the next phase to it.
I mean, I love the point you're making, actually. My father was telling me that when he was studying, radios were supposed to be the cause of all evil. Because they take away
TV,
your
television.
attention, etc. Then it became television, it became internet, now it's AI.
Now, mobile phone for the kids, exam going kids, right? Digital detox, that's what we were saying. So, but the key issue is, but if you look at historically, has it paused or progressed? Right, that's number one, human development. Otherwise, ChatGPT wouldn't have been done if those kids only have built it. Right? And similarly, from a policy perspective, what we are discussing as consumer, we are using it. But if as an organization I use it, unabashedly, what will happen? You are also giving away your company data
To the AI.
to the open world.
Absolutely.
Right? And there are now versions available which are regulated.
Correct.
Right? There are enterprise versions, so which will, then you can build it in your own private cloud instead of doing it in a public cloud. So, I don't want to talk technology. There are ways and means of controlling it. Because if these companies these are well invested companies, big companies, if they don't regulate themselves, if they go, like crazy, society will shut it down.
So I have a thought there.
Yeah.
So, the point that you made is about like AI was developed by people, and I completely agree. But are we staring at a challenge that it'll create two levels of people? The very, very bright ones who will be capable of creating AI, and the other ones who will just become slave to it,
It's already there.
So I think that is my fear, the mediocrity in between. We're actually pushing them down and making them lazy to be able to, access data which is readily and easily available. I think it's about easily available and just using it, rather than trying to make that effort of going hunting for it, finding that data.
The
So
point
maybe
he was
I'll
making
just,
was about
yeah.
the internet, right?
Yeah.
You stopped going through the library and reading 50 journals before you found
I don't
something.
know
So
why
the question I think basically is what's wrong with that?
Correct.
I mean, as society evolves and as people evolve, you have to embrace all this. So in fact, in this whole subject of whether AI is going to replace people who know AI are going to replace people,
Yeah, true.
But the next level,
Spot on.
right?
Spot on.
No, but
on.
I think if you go a step further, you will have all the rule-based, jobs being done by AI, and AI delivering you the, the result.
outcome.
So therefore, we also have to look at what could be the potential effect on an economy, whether it may lead to job losses, or whether you would have these negative impacts is also something, because for 1.4 billion people in the country, a lot of them are doing the rule-based daily, I mean, they're
Operational
just
jobs.
absolutely operational jobs. That will completely get replaced with AI.
Yeah, but if you
so
look
what
at
do
it-
you do with this?
Look at it, and I read it somewhere. Okay, replace this bulb. AI can't do that. So that electrician will still come and replace your bulb for you.
So you still have that last mile to be done.
Don't be too sure about that.
For now.
The robots might come.
Yes, and do it.
Drones which will fly.
For now.
some AI working for an electricity company is going to send the robot to replace the bulb.
The point is that what will happen is, and this is the sentient thing that you're also talking about, the point is our brains will learn to do something else. If our brains have to evolve.
That is an important point to raise. And suppose, let's put it this way. Your ancestor about 10,000 years back managed to survive, managed to send his family forward because he knew how to kill a deer better than others.
Correct.
Now,
I don't need to kill a deer.
You don't need to kill a deer. So do we need to use our brains is the first question I'll ask, and then how do we need to use it to take it forward as the next.
And the second part is we're talking about the bulb, right? So eventually will technology evolve to a level where a 3D bulb gets constructed if a bulb fuses and it gets replaced on its own and that signal gets sent across? It's possible, right?
We still don't have autonomous cars.
Yeah.
Fully autonomous
And
cars.
those cars.
And
figure
incidentally,
out-
that bulb you're talking about might be on Mars, not on Earth.
So the fact is, tech will evolve. It will start thinking on its own. And we are all very excited about what's happened with AI, right? And it's really changed. It's been a paradigm shift for a lot of us. Maybe in a few years, I don't know how long. I wish I knew. I would have made a few $1 million. I would have got deep to invest, right? But in a few years, maybe the thinking part or the learning on its own and doing on its own will come in, where I'm just sitting and not doing anything, and having a cup of coffee or eating cake. Rajeev, you were talking about it.
Oh, yes,
right. But will this tech, I don't know what it will be called, evolve to the level where we really don't need to do anything?
Most certainly. I would say most certainly.
I think if you've seen
I think we are moving to a stage where people have to do less work. So you can, pretty soon you'll have 3-day weeks.
Yeah.
And then may become 2
Waiting
days.
for the day to come.
But then how do you engage people?
Yeah.
Maybe the entertainment industry is a place to invest in.
Consumer economy will.
I don't know.
Purpose. I'm worried about purpose. Purpose,
Yeah.
and all the research around blue zones has talked about purpose. And where do we find our purpose? We have been wired to a purpose which is very much professional. If we don't have a professional life, or if we have a professional life which is very different from now, where do we?
But maybe some of the smarter guys will then figure out how to actually operate rockets at light speed. Right?
As Deep said, maybe a small set of people.
Yeah, very small person. Like the movie 2012, right? There's only a small set of people who would get on the arcs.
Yes.
But will they figure that out? Because now they have freed up brain power to really think of what needs to be done to get to. I would love to go to Jupiter, for example, right? Will they help us figure that out?
But I think the important point is we need to constantly keep reskilling ourselves,
Yes, very good.
right? So this whole thing about lifelong learning
Exactly.
becomes more and more important. And I would say, particularly, when we're looking at education, things that you teach probably get obsolete by the time you pass out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really happening. Such a rapid pace of change in terms of technology, particularly in this whole area of AI.
So then should institutions like XLRI focus not on teaching AI, but looking at oldies like me and teaching us how to really adapt and reskill in terms of...
maybe not Excel, but they can definitely look at that as a diversification.
I think you're very right, and there have been some major changes in management education. Who we are changing has changed a lot. Earlier, it used to be kids out of college whom we end up teaching. Now, the majority of whom we teach are probably going to be professionals. And even if you look at our graduate classes, our MBA classes, the number of years of work ex they come in with
has gone up.
Yeah. So there's a sea change in that.
What's
which
it
has
on
happened.
an average now?
Around 2.5 is for a regular MBA program, and our professionals whom we address through 2-day programs, 10-day programs, 6 months programs, that is about 10 times the number of full-time students we have right now. So that's how it is played out.
What about senior skilling? People who are retiring, very experienced. They can be reskilled, and with longevity increasing, it becomes even more relevant to address that population.
And for them, a sense of purpose is even more important, because when my dad retired, he needed to do something, otherwise he would have aged faster.
Yeah.
So for them, that sense of purpose.
Actually, there's this entire economics around 100-year life.
Okay.
I don't know. There's an entire tech
yes.
around.
I've read
It's
that
an entire
book,
thing
actually.
around
Yeah.
100-year life.
The
There's a complete
immortality.
economy. Yeah, because there's a complete thing, and to your point, Arvind, and it's re-education, going back to school, going back to college. At any point in your life, as professionals, as entrepreneurs, is absolutely you don't possibly over here. It's still a taboo. But some of the some of the global business schools, you have people at 70 years old who goes back for a 6 weeks program.
Yes. I think one of the questions, you raised that for sure, is probably the immediate thing that we are looking at is a massive change in how branding and selling are being done. So what do you think are the next few steps that are going to happen?
Look, I think, I think we know that marketing, CRM, those are the first use cases for AI really. Anything that can be automated at scale, anything that can bring the cost down, because in marketing and costs are synonymously used by most businesses nowadays, and for the right reasons, right? I think that's one of the areas where most companies make big investments. So I think the use of AI is there. I think the problem or the challenge is in 2 or 3 areas. The job loss one is a very real impact of that, right? I think, and we spoke about what happens when labor arbitrage dies down. A country like India, Philippines, all the South Asian countries are going to be massively impacted.
Luxembourg will certainly pop up.
We've built our economy in the last 20 years on this one model. Correct. And that's going to get challenged severely. So I think clear call out. Number 2, I think, and we've been discussing it in many forms and shapes, sentience, right? So at some point, the AI decides for itself what the right response is. And that's where things get tricky. Because I think fundamentally brands are not comfortable when they are not in, or businesses are not comfortable when they don't control the narrative. See, we thrive on standardization and predictability. If your answer is in 2% of the median, I am okay. You can't go to 2.5. With sentience, you don't know what's going to happen. Imagine ordering a pizza, like she was saying, and the voice at the other end says, your order is not good for you. The more calories that you can ingest.
But taking a cue from what you're saying, where AI, gives the response based on huge sorting of the data that they will have. So, what will happen if the response from AI actually creates a harm to an individual? So, who do we hold responsible or accountable in that case? So, these are things that we need to think about and start thinking at this stage before things actually go out of hand.
Absolutely.
That we need something to tame this. Yeah. It is a mad horse at the point in time and can go madder, rather maddest.
If not tamed.
How do we
the whole
kind of
concept of the kill switch, right? It's a big concept that exists. It's a concept, right? Yeah, but it's about that one person who's just going to pull out the cables.
And I just finished. And the third point, I think typically in marketing and people who do that thrive on it is the creative aspect, right? So, there is the science, but there is the art, right? And I think the art part of it is so romanticized, right? You can't tell people how to write a good song. You can't tell Rahman how to give good music. You can't tell Picasso what to paint, right? Maybe you can.
No,
Maybe you can. And the kind of pictures that AI can create for you. I was going to say paint or whatever. The wrong word.
Paint is better.
Create is the right word. I mean, we've got these mashups now where Arijit Singh is singing a Rafi song and Rafi is singing Arijit song.
Yeah.
So those, I think that's going to be the biggest challenge in marketing, right? Because the art of it is going to become scientific. And along with it come a host of issues on IP, on what's legal, what's not legal. Because at the end of it, consumers don't care how it's made. They only react to the stimulus. So if it's a joke which is funny, I don't care if Rajeev is telling it or
Deepfake.
It's not a deepfake. Yes.
That's it.
It's the feelings it invokes and the emotions it generates.
I think that's going to be the real challenge. And imagine it may come for free. Rahman may charge you a couple of $1 million to create a tune. Similar tune, 90% there, free available on some.
Yeah.
That's the. So it changes everything. It changes the way monetization happens. It changes the way the entire economics of this landscape is currently operating.
Okay.
I'm certainly hoping it doesn't go there, but
Reality is it will.
Yeah.
It's a question of when.
Yes, it's a question.
Yeah,
of
I
when.
think I think we are at a little bit of geographically or politically, let's say, we are probably at a little bit of a disadvantage. A country like a Norway or a Luxembourg, they can afford a universal basic income. So those who are below an imaginary line, they are fine. Here we are probably looking at it the other way. I mean, we're looking at the large number of people, and you've called out now the labor arbitrage is probably has a limited life. So as a society, what do we end up doing now?
One, of course, reskilling. Second is to focus on areas which are likely to get less impacted. So, for example, where a human touch is required. For example, professions like a nurse. I don't think you'll be able to replace a nurse with a robo because that empathy will really come from a human being. Also, even when you look at automated voice response systems, you want a human touch at the other end, to provide a better experience. So things, which deliver a better experience are areas where perhaps we need to start skilling people.
Okay, so management with a human touch now gets a completely new meaning to it.
So that intensity then needs to improve. We say that there's already a human touch that exists, but then the level will need to be raised because at some stage AI will be able to do the bare minimum on the human touch, right, Arvind? So then I as a human need to engage more deeply with you folks rather than the way I used to operate earlier. That's what will happen?
Yes. Okay. And I think that's a conundrum also because on one side we are saying AI will take away the human touch and then on the other side, we have to skill professions with human touch. So I think there needs to be like a deep thinking and a strategy to be put into place. And how to make it happen. And I'd actually like to inverse your question is that if AI is going to do what we are doing, then how do we ensure that for the students, for the people we create other jobs, So I think there needs to be some thought put around it. And it's good to say, but I think we need to be a little prescriptive about it, that what are those jobs could be. I think that would be, and I would say that's a huge onus on educational institutions to be able to kind of put it across to them, because I'm sure the students also have a bit of a thought like that, or fear in their minds about this whole thing. They're quite smart, they understand what's happening. So I think we need to be a little prescriptive about what are the areas that they could go into. So
I'll possibly give one example to Arvind's point, what he meant, a very important point, that AI is not going to replace human. AI is going to replace a human with a human who knows how to use AI. So the way that is what so I'll give you a real life example. If you look at if you're a typical BPO industry worker, you're handling 200 calls a day, right? Or 300 calls a day, simple. If you look at between your customer facing interaction and looking at systems, data and all that, right? Actually the ratio is customer interaction is 20%, 20 to 25%, 80% is trying to figure out the data about the customer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Right. What if that load, because you're multitasking, what if, and that is what is happening in the real world, it's not imaginary, that is completely UX design. Based on the question, the responses are automatically. So as a call center agent, I'm able to build a bit deeper relationship, connect with the customer.
Yeah.
How's your family? Is your father's health good? How was the doctor's? What was the result? So you get to know much more personalized, and if the person is willing to share, right? So the quality of engagement, because instead of thinking, we have to use our imagination, it's being used, right? To get a higher quality engagement.
Yeah.
Shameless plug, that's what we're doing.
No, actually, what you're saying is so true. So, look, I work in retail now, and the maximum conversion in retail happens at the checkout.
Exactly.
So people buy what they buy, and when they're there, in those 3 minutes, you can possibly sell them 200-300 rupees more than they thought they would buy.
Absolutely.
Tools like this very useful, right? Imagine if at a checkout, the guy is able to tell you, hey, look, you buy Maggie every time, it's not in your cart now. Just by punching your phone number or just by facial recognition or use some technology. So the use of AI to further business is also going to be there for sure. And I think it's, I think in this debate also and in everything that I have read so far, I think the common narrative is to look at it as a threat.
Yeah.
Because somewhere we feel our jobs are under danger. Two things are, I think, driving the fear. One is it will take my job. Second, I don't know how to deal with this damn thing, because I can't control it. If there was a way to reverse this, because I think at some point there may have been this feeling with the internet for sure.
There would have been.
Right? When internet came and made information democratic, I think the academia would have been the first to worry about it.
So now we're very worried. Now we're very worried.
But
we are using AI to sharpen our CVs right now.
No, but I think internet ultimately turned out to be a good thing, right? I mean, overall, I'm sure there is a way and there's a spin on using this in very productive ways.
Okay. Now, suppose as academia, we are reaching out to the corporate world. We are reaching out to the world which is at the front lines of dealing with this new tech. What is it that we should be asking for? We would want help, we would want suggestions, but what exactly is it that we should be asking for?
I think here we probably need to focus a lot more on the fundamentals. Statistics, mathematics. I think people will have to start learning some of these things which they run away from. Because these are basic building blocks for all these,
Basic numeracy, basic communication, that's what you're...
Yeah. Also soft skills. I think we need to focus a lot on soft skills.
True. Absolutely.
Communication, resilience.
Communication, creativity, all these soft skills, which are...
Yeah.
So actually, the interesting thing is, the hard skills, which you give to your students are temporary.
Yeah.
Whereas the soft skills that you build becomes part of the personality which remains for life. So I think we need to focus a lot more on building those soft skills, which will develop the individual's personality.
So the human aspect versus the functional.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's
And
a
also,
very good point.
challenge them continuously to bring in innovative thoughts, because that will actually be the game changer. You will have all the things generated by AI and thrown it at your face. What to take? What is the thought you need to communicate? All that the innovative aspect of it, the logical thinking of it. These are the things they have to more focus on. And I think.
I'll also put it slightly differently. I think if you look at the workforce currently, we are good at solving problems, but we're not so good at identifying problems.
Yeah.
So perhaps we need to now start focusing on where can we add value by identifying problems, because the solutions will come from AI.
So, for want of a better word, a more design thinking approach where you're probably looking at oscillating between the two. Yep.
And I think taking a cue from what Deep said with looking at customer service, if now this guy has 80% time freed up, he is engaging more. So, corporates will have to rehash the entire process now and, get into more, getting personalized services. So define as, going back to the drawing board and start redesigning the process, that these are the things, because typically in customer service, what to say, how to say, everything is kind of, written step by step, this is what you have to do. So now you have to rethink and, kind of rehash the process and figure out what should be the new design.
In fact, what we do, and this is reality today, because I'm sure you. So what we do is a customer's journey is from the point of time marketing campaigns happen, and I express an interest in a product. I'll reach out, and then someone from sales will engage with me, and then finally, hopefully, I'll buy the product. Let's say I'm buying an air conditioner, it gets shipped to my place, it gets installed, and I'll own it for, let's say, 3 years or 5 years or whatever. To a service agent, adding on to your example, who's on the phone and I'm calling and I'm irate, my AC conked off yesterday, have you come and fixed it? Someone comes and fixes it. It conks off again in 2 days. If the customer service agent has a context, and there'll be a long conversation, speech to text that has happened, and then I'm sending an email, and then I'm reaching out via WhatsApp, multiple channels come into play. And it could be a very long conversation, right? I get a call, I'm a customer service agent, and I'm trying to respond to Arvind. Haji sir, main dekh raha hu, and I'm trying to go through those 50 lines of data. It's crazy. So what we are able to do is make it 3 lines.
Correct.
Cut to the chase, and also say, hey, by the way, Arvind, I hope you've been to the Taj at Surajkund, for example, recently, because you stay there and have that data because the AC is installed there. Cutting to the chase, and then using that conversation to raise the bar, that element to raise the bar. So there's a huge element, and typically in organizations what happens is marketing operates independent of sales, operates independent of customer service.
Absolutely.
I have no idea why Arvind bought the AC versus what's happening now with him in his life, right? And all of that coming together can really change the way, and it, from an organization perspective, it will bring down cost but improve what we say the CSAT score dramatically, because the call gets managed very quickly. And fundamentally with GenAI, what do I want to do? Nothing. Right? Eventually, I just want to be sitting and someone tech somewhere is sorting out things for me, and I'm just sitting, having a margarita on the beach, or reading a book, or doing something that and nothing else, right? But I'm still making
all
money.
of the above.
All of them. And making money in the process, right? For some reason. So if that's really going to be the reality, it's going to be the reality. How and in what form, we can't put guardrails around it. We can't control it. Regulations will come in. There'll be the deep tech that will be driving it anyways. The dark web will be driving it anyways. What are you going to do with that? It's going to happen. And at some stage, it will become part of our lives. So what will happen to us is the question that comes in.
So, wishing us the very best that this actually ends up happening very soon. Our margaritas are on the way, and it's not too late for us. And we don't have to depend upon the 100-year economy that we are looking at. We get it far sooner than that.
I think AI will tell us the best margarita, how to make the best margarita, the type of margarita you like.
That's very easy, actually.
Yeah, exactly.
But what if we were to ask ChatGPT or one of Bard, what do you think will happen to us? What will they say?
I won't get the margarita, that's what they say. But I'm sure they'll have an answer.
actually, just to go back to the point that an interesting deliberation you were asking earlier. So, what happens to institutes like Excel, right? What do you teach? I think one of the things which will definitely happen because of this is that, like, today people pass out of a MBA school as a finance degree, do 40 years of finance. I think those days are gone. I think there will be rapid skilling and reskilling. I don't think we're too far away from a model where somebody starts out in finance and then switches to copywriting in 3 years because some of those barriers are so low. And possibly there is a big opportunity for institutes like Excel, to go from the current package model to a subscription model. You pass out of an MBA and come back for 3 months and do another MBA.
The degree is valid
And
for
3
5
months
years.
and another MBA. So I think it'll throw up very interesting possibilities in the future.
So, yeah, again, another twist to the lifelong learning that you were talking about. Yes.
Absolutely.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
The degree is valid for 3 years.
Yeah, it's a subscription. It's an add-on.
No, your degree is valid for, rather, your membership to our institution or your membership as a student to our institution is valid for the rest of your life.
Yeah. So when we look at MBA networks, we leverage them also for the relationship we build. Half of a batchmate will end up somewhere or the other, and we leverage that network. Yeah. That will also become short term, right? Yeah. So today I could speak to Deep, but afterwards he's gone somewhere else, and then he's from that MBA network perspective is no longer relevant.
Yeah. Correct. So thank you, everyone. I think we had a lovely conversation around this, and looking forward to far many more thoughts around this.